social event. I'm so happy to have you all here with me. So I just want to give you a moment to make yourself comfortable today. So grab yourself a drink and a snack if you've been working all day and are feeling a little bit peckish. You might choose to sit away from where you work normally so that it feels like more of a social event rather than a work event. And then I encourage people to let their presence be known through the chat function. So you can take a minute to get that up on your screen. And I'd love for everybody to just write in with their name to start off. So we have a bit of a sense of who is all here together. And I'll just give you a few minutes to get yourself comfortable, grounded, sorted, and then we're going to begin. Sasha, nice to see you. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Carissa.
Victory, thanks for tuning in. Jen, nice to meet you all. Michelle, lovely to have you hosting. And I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Carissa Kasper, and I'm the founder of Seed Nourish. You can find me on Instagram at Seed Nourish. You can also find me same name at my website, Facebook, Twitter. And just to let you know a little bit about myself and how I came to gardening, how I started my business. So Seed Nourish is I'm a kitchen garden designer with Seed Nourish. So what that means is I come to people's houses, businesses, apartments, help them design a garden that's going to be utilized primarily to grow food. And I also provide coaching services. So I'll be a garden guide with clients throughout the growing season to help them be very successful in growing food. And how I came to gardening is 10 years ago, I ended up back in my hometown unexpectedly in Saskatchewan. Wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to be in my life, where I was going, any of those kind of things. And I was feeling very kind of drifting in life. And I had been traveling a lot for the 10 years prior. So I ended up finding a job with a Cree community garden project where we taught people how to grow food and provided a space for community to form through weekly activities and meals. And once I started gardening, I found my own place in working with the soil. And I started to feel a lot more grounded, comfortable in my body, and in community with other people. And I was just hooked. So once I came out to Vancouver to complete a creative writing degree, I finished that up and I was trying to make a place for myself here. And that's when I started Seed Nourish 3 years ago, because I wanted to provide other people with that experience and opportunity. So as much as we're growing food, we're growing so many other things. Peace with our bodies, relationships with the food that we eat, relationships with the nature around us, and also just a place where we belong. And community to be here with. So I'm so excited when I get invited to opportunities like this, where there is a community that has formed around gardening, because I feel like it's such a healthy way for people to be in community with each other. So what I would love to hear from all of you today in the chat function, if you go ahead and let me know one word that brought you to gardening. Health, happiness, life. I love those words. They're beautiful sentiments. Community, joy. Yes, those are all wonderful things that we get out of gardening. And I really appreciate everybody sharing what the experience of gardening has been for them. So what we're going to talk about today, here's a little bit of an overview of what the webinar is going to consist of. So first, we're going to go through seasonality and talk about some different varieties of things that can go in the salad bowl, and specifically in the continuous salad bowl. And then we're going to get down into the nitty gritty a little bit and talk about direct seeding versus planting with seedlings and growing specifically in containers or raised beds. And finally, we're going to talk about specific harvesting techniques that are going to ensure that you have a continuous salad bowl. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about how to put it all together into a salad with all of the fixings. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is cool season crops. So when we're talking about greens, lettuces, mesclines, arugula, spinach, all of these types of crops prefer to grow in cool weather. We basically have in the Lower Mainland 3 different growing seasons. So we have the spring season, which I consider to be March through May. We've got the summer season, which is end of May through September. And then we have the fall winter season, which is September all the way through February. And we're so lucky here that we're able to grow year round in all of these different seasons. That was the most exciting thing for me when I moved to Vancouver from Saskatchewan, which has 2 seasons, winter and summer is 8 weeks long, and winter is the other 10 months. So coming to Vancouver, the fact that we're able to grow year round here is so exciting. So, but one of the things we have to really understand in growing year round is that there are these distinct seasons, and there are certain crops that prefer to grow in the distinct seasons. So, I'm going to kind of lean towards the fall winter season because that's what we're entering into right now. But the spring season often looks very similar in the types of crops that we can grow. So the first category is brassicas. So that's things like kale, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, collard greens. All of these vegetables prefer to grow or mature in the cool season. Brassicas tend to have longer days to maturity, so oftentimes we're planting them in a different season like summer. Right now, in the last 2 weeks, I've been planting all of these out because they'll take longer to grow. But what's going to happen is they're going to mature in the fall season, and that's going to ensure a really nice crop rather than trying to get them to mature in the summer when oftentimes they're going to bolt with the high heat, which means setting flowers and going to seed rather than producing a nice head of cabbage or cauliflower or broccoli. So we're just kind of setting them up for success by growing them in the season that they prefer to grow. Another category, so that's the kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, if you didn't catch that. Another category that, well, it can do both summer and cool weather crops, and that's our root crops. So that's our beets, our radish, our carrots, our turnips, our onions. All of these things can grow both in cool weather and warm weather. So oftentimes I'm planting them really early in the spring or in the summer, and they're maturing in the next season because root crops always need to be planted by seed rather than seedling, which means they take longer to grow. The next category that we can grow in the cool season is peas. So peas are such a big delight. And again, they're going to extend between seasons. You can plant them very early in the spring. You'll harvest them in the summer, or you can plant them right now in the last couple of weeks. We're just kind of ending the window of time when peas can be planted to mature in the fall. The next category is onions and leeks. So leeks in particular have a very long growing season. We plant them now again, and they're going to mature next spring. So, but they overwinter really well. So it's a great crop because it takes so long to grow. They're a large vegetable. We're not taking up room in the summer garden with them if we plant them now, overwinter, harvest them in the spring. There are also overwintering onions, specifically Walla Walla is a really classic, good variety to overwinter. And same reason, we're being able to grow things over the winter time, harvesting them in the spring, freeing up space for the summer garden. It's really important when we're growing in small spaces, when we're living in urban spaces. Often we're growing in raised beds or container gardens. So we want to be utilizing the space at all times. And if we're planting throughout the seasons and planning to fill all of those gaps that are come out as crops are harvested or finish up, this is a way that we're able to utilize that. And then the last category is our greens. So that's our lettuces, our spinach, our arugula, our Swiss chard, our kale, all of our different kind of categories of greens, which I'm just referring to as greens today. And that's what we're going to really focus on in this webinar today with our salad bowl. So what happens with greens often is if we're growing them, planting them in the summertime, is that they're going to bolt. So again, bolting means they go to flower and they start setting seed instead of producing leaves. The leaves that are there are going to become, quite a lot bitter to taste and tough and just not really what we're looking for in our salad bowl. So the way that we kind of get the most out of our greens is planting them in the spring and planting them in the fall so that they're growing and maturing in the cool weather instead of the summer months. So the first category, and the most important one for us today, is our leaf lettuces. So the reason the leaf lettuces are such an amazing thing for us to grow in the garden is because they can be cut at soil level and they will regrow 3 or 4 times. So that's the most exciting thing about the leaf lettuces is that they're going to give us continuous crops. So I'm going to go into some of the varieties that really do best in this manner. So that's primarily our baby green blends. So if you go to the grocery store and you're buying, a salad mix or a mesclun mix or any of those ones that often come, in a box or a bag with a bunch of little small lettuces, those are all baby green blends. But I don't know if you're anything like me. Whenever I buy those from the grocery store, I never really make it through the entire box or bag before they start to get a little bit slimy and a little bit less appetizing. So what I love is when I'm able to grow my own and they're as fresh as they come and I'm not wasting any of that food. So the baby green blends, what's so nice about them is you get a good variety of different lettuce types in it. So all of the varieties that I'm going to go through now are available through West Coast Seeds, who is my personal favorite seed supplier, just quality seeds created and blended for our weather. So they're all available through West Coast Seeds. So Super Gourmet Blend, that's one of my absolute favorites. It's a blend of butter crunch, red leaf, romaine, and green leaf lettuces. So you get a variety of taste and textures in that. So that one planted by seed is 60 to 80 days to harvest, which means it's a great time to plant that one now. If you're if your garden is full of tomatoes and cucumbers and you don't really have any gaps right now, don't really want to plant in pots, then you might choose a different blend that's a little bit quicker to harvest. So our Fast and Furious, our Easy Leaf Blend, our Mighty Micro Blend, all of these are 35 to 40 days to harvest. So they're really quick growing. So those are ones that you might plant at the start of September and still be able to get a good harvest out of. So these are ones that you're going to harvest very quickly, continuously, every 2 to 3 weeks in the way that I'm going to demonstrate to you, which is called cut and come again. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more substantial, you're somebody who maybe is using lettuces less in salads, more on a burger or a sandwich, and you're looking for like a bigger kind of leaf to use, then you might grow a loose leaf variety. So loose leaf varieties also are going to give you a little bit more special considerations in the different varieties. So for example, Drunken Woman on the left is one that is very slow to bolt and fairly quick growing too. So it's a really nice tasting lettuce that's going to last a little bit longer if you want lettuce to go into that hot weather season. Red Sails, also very slow to bolt. Grand Rapids is a great one to grow in the cool weather. It does really well in cool, damp, low light conditions, like growing in a greenhouse or under a cloche. And then Alima is a really great one too. If you're growing indoors and in a hydroponic setting, it does really well in those kind of conditions. So loose leaf varieties can also be part of the continuous salad bowl and harvested in that cut and come again technique so that they will continue to regrow. So the difference between the loose leaf or the leaf varieties of lettuce and head lettuces is that head lettuces are going to take a lot longer to mature, and we're not able to harvest them in that cut and come again method, which means they are going to they're not going to give you the continuous harvest through a season. They're going to give you one single harvest, one head of lettuce. But why would we grow then head lettuce if we can get multiple harvests out of leaf lettuce? Again, there's a taste consideration. So if you're wanting something that's a little crispier than your baby greens, that sort of thing, then you're going to have to go into the head lettuce as well. And personally, what I love to do is I do think of it as a continuous salad bowl. So I'm growing a bunch of baby greens. So I get, a first harvest very quickly, by seed in a month, by seedling in 2 weeks. And I'm having that continuously for 2 months. And then after you get about 3 to 4 harvests off of each plant, then they're kind of spent. Like they've given you a lot, they've regrown a lot, being cut down to just 1 inch. And then at that point in time, it's time to kind of say goodbye to those leaf lettuces. But that's about the days to maturity for head lettuces, usually around 60 days. So once I'm saying goodbye to my leaf lettuce, then my head lettuces are ready to harvest. And they're going to last a little bit longer in the garden as heads before they bolt. So then I'm going to extend my harvest a little bit longer into, month 3, even maybe pushing month 4 after I planted them. So it is a way of creating a continuous salad, a salad bowl as well. So some of the varieties that I really like, and head lettuces are divided kind of into their own categories. So the first one is butterhead. So that one is a softer type of leaf. It's going to have a little bit of crispness to it, but not as much as like a crisp head or an iceberg, but maybe a little bit more than a romaine. And my personal favorite is the Roxy on the left. So it just has a beautiful color. The texture is really nice and crunchy. It's got good tolerance to cold weather. So it's going to last very well in the garden. It's also got good tolerance to bolting. So it will go into that summer season a little bit better. So that's a really great one to grow too. I also really like the Tom Thumb in the center. So the Tom Thumb is super cute because it's going to grow a little personal size lettuce. So it's like such a nice delight. Either if you're a single person, you live alone, you're not wasting, a full head of lettuce. You're just picking it. It's as fresh as it can be and eating it kind of in one serving. I also love it too if you're having a dinner party or having people over for dinner. Like, how delightful is it to be serving a salad where everybody has their own personal head of lettuce that you've harvested from your garden? It's a really good party trick. Another one that I really like is the blushed butter oak. So that one is very cold hardy. It's got a delicious flavor, and the color is really nice on that as well. So I'm just going to pause for a second and check in if anybody has any questions about any of the leaf lettuce varieties that we've talked about, or anything else that we've talked about so far. You can put your questions into the chat, and then you're also welcome to just signal to Michelle if you prefer to ask your question verbally. So if there are any questions, just write into the chat. Okay, so doesn't look like anybody has any questions yet. So we'll keep going with the head lettuces.
Sorry, Carissa. I actually do have a question. Maybe my
Sure.
typing's just not that fast. Okay. I was wondering, you said you're quite close with West Coast Seeds. Can you recommend any I think you touched on this before, maybe I just couldn't write fast enough, but could you recommend any lettuce blends that I could get from West Coast Seeds that I can start now?
Yeah, great question. So actually every single variety that I'm going through today is available through West Coast Seeds. The blends in particular, the one that I personally always grow is the Super Gourmet Salad Blend. And I like that one just a lot because it has a nice variety of the lettuces. It has the butter crunch. It's got red leaf. It's got romaine. It's got green leaf in there. So it's just a really nice look and flavor and grows really well for me. But yeah, if you're looking for something that's a little quicker to harvest, they've got the Mighty Micro Blend, the Easy Leaf Blend, and the Fast and Furious blend, all of which I've grown and really enjoy.
Okay. And can they be grown in pots, or would you prefer just a traditional garden bed?
They can be grown in both, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit later what that looks like in both raised bed and a pot. And I'm seeing a question come through the chat about, are they available from Choices? So I do know with West Coast Seeds that each retail partner that they have carries their own seed selection. So it's going to definitely vary what's available at each different supplier. But the Super Gourmet Blend in particular is a pretty popular one of theirs. So that's one that I would assume would be fairly widely available.
Perfect.
And any other questions right now, or shall we continue? Okay, seems like we'll continue for now. All right, so on to our next head lettuce. So the next category of head lettuce, if you're looking for something very crispy, then you're looking at iceberg or crisp head. And they're fairly similar. Crisp head would be kind of maybe a little less crispy than iceberg, have maybe a little bit more color to it than the iceberg. And I would kind of consider it in between the butterhead and an iceberg. So a little crispier than the butterhead as well. And the two that's available from West Coast Seeds that I really like is the Dillon, which is an iceberg, and the Ananu, which is a crisp head. The Ananu is really slow to bolt, which I like. And then the Dillon is just the crispiest and juiciest, and it's fairly compact as well. So it's a good one to grow in a pot or a smaller garden. And then we've got our romaine. So romaine is maybe the head lettuce that people are the most familiar with. If you've had a Caesar salad, of course, you've had romaine. Romaine varieties, there are a lot of ones that are very cold tolerant. So probably the most cold tolerant lettuce of all is going to be the Rouge d'Hiver. So that one often can withstand frost even and go through the winter on its own, which is pretty incredible. We also have the little gem. So again, like the butter crunch, it's a little teeny personal sized romaine lettuce. So again, just so fun to share with other people or to prepare yourself a really nice meal with. We've got the winter density, which is also quite frost tolerant, like the Rouge d'Hiver, if you prefer a green romaine over a red. And then kind of the classic romaine that we might see around the most and might see the varieties available the most in the garden center is going to be the Paris Island Cause. And that one's an heirloom, which, speaks to the longevity and why it's been around a lot. It's slow to bolt. It's got a really good flavor, a very creamy kind of heart. Okay, so those are the different lettuces that are available. And in the continuous salad bowl, we're going to plant, first of all, leaf lettuces so that we can harvest them with that cut and come again method. And then we might choose to also plant head lettuces to extend that harvesting window for a little bit longer. But what if we want to spice up our salads a little bit? So then we're getting into different kinds of greens. So the first category, if we're thinking about flavor, is going to be our mesclins. So mesclins just means blend of many different things. So many of the mesclin blends might be blended with herbs such as chervil and parsley, or with bitter greens for flavors. So there's endive and chicory often in them. Or they might be blended with a little bit more spicier greens like arugula and mustard greens. So I've got kind of three different examples of this. So our West Coast market mix has endive, red oak leaf lettuce, escarole, chicory, arugula, chervil. So that's going to have, the French herb kind of flavor to it. And you're going to have a little bit more savory kind of flavor in your salad if you're incorporating that either alone or with some lettuces. And then we've got the winter blend. So that's arugula, chervil, endive, parsley, and 3 winter hardy lettuces. So that one's going to have a bit more of the bitter greens kind of flavor to that, if that's, something that your palate is really wanting. And then we've got the stir fry blend. So that one's really good stir fried in a wok. So you can also think of the salad bowl as being, a warm salad bowl. So that's got mustard greens, pak choy, choy sum, baosin, red kale, giant red mustard, tatsai. So lots of good spicy flavors in that one as well that can be stir fried. And then if we kind of tease out from those mesclines, there's two real stars of the winter garden in particular, for cut and come again greens, and that is spinach and arugula. So my favorite variety of spinach is called Giant Winter. And what I love about it is, like its name, is going to grow giant leaves and it's going to be very cold tolerant. So West Coast Seeds has a really great tip for growing spinach. If you plant it by seed in the third week of August, so that's where we're at right now, it's going to produce a small fall harvest. But once you do that cut and come again method, cut it down to 1 inch, it's going to overwinter. It'll die back in the frost. It's not going to look very good. But come early spring, it's going to spring back to life. And you're going to have some very lush, full harvests in the early spring that have really big leaves. The spinach are unaffected by any pests or disease. Oftentimes, when we're growing spinach in other seasons, even the spring into the summer, we'll get leaf miners is a very common pest that we'll have in them. So they're going to be just basically the most perfect spinach that you've ever had, and a lot of it, which is good because personally I cook down my spinach most of the time. And once you cook it down, it doesn't really amount to as much. So we get a nice big harvest in the early spring when we're still looking for those warming kind of foods. And then secondly, arugula is one of the real stars of the cool season. For me, again, it's very cold tolerant. The leaves are going to grow back really quickly and big, so you get a lot out of it. And then personally, I just really love the spiciness of arugula. So it's a great addition to the salad, or is the main star of the salad. So that's one that I really like to grow in my salad bowl as well. And then if you're a little bit more adventurous, if you've grown, everything in this list and you're looking for something a little bit different to try, then we get into our wild greens. So we've got curly cress, which is a pepper grass. So like its name, it's quite spicy. It grows very, very quickly. So you plant it by seed, it grows in 10 days. Ready to harvest in 10 days. It's very cold tolerant. So it's going to do well in the fall winter garden. And, just even sprinkling a little bit on top of your salad is going to give it a nice kind of spiciness and bite. Now, if you're less of a spicy kind of greens type of person, then you might consider red orach. So that one is more heat tolerant. So that's one that you can grow in the summer season if you're looking for more greens in your life. It's going to have a similar kind of texture to spinach. But what's interesting about the orach is it's salty. So again, if you're, watching your intake of salt and you're looking at your sodium and your salad dressings, that kind of thing, but you really want that salty flavor, that's a way that you're going to, be able to get that into your salad bowl. And then the last one in the wild greens category is called corn mash. So that's a very French crop to grow. It's incredibly cold tolerant. So it's a really good one for the winter garden again. And it's going to have a little bit more bitterness to it. So again, really a nice kind of flavor to add into the salad bowl if you're looking for that flavor profile. And then, so those are kind of the greens that we're traditionally thinking of. But we have other kind of options that we can add into the salad bowl and grow through the fall, winter season as well. So we've got Swiss chard, and my favorite variety is the classic one that you'll see, which is called Celebration. And it's a blend of all the different colors of Swiss chard available. So you'll have some oranges, yellows, pinks, reds, and it's just going to brighten up your salad bowl, and it's going to have a bit more of the bitter flavor too. It can be cooked with really well too, so it's a nice one to kind of consider for the salad bowl. And then we've got the mustard greens, again, one that can be cooked or eaten fresh. It's got a little bit more spiciness to it. I really like the Komatsuna variety, which just has some beautiful purple color to it and really nice shape of leaves. And then if you're looking for something maybe that you might want to have a warm salad with, radicchio is the choice. So radicchio de Luisa is a favorite, beautiful coloring, something that's going to really stand out. And then finally, kale. And of course, there's many different varieties and colors of kale, but personally, I love the scarlet kale because it just really pops in the garden, and seeing those really rich jewel colors in the middle of winter just kind of lights me up. So I'm going to just pause again and see if people have any questions about varieties. That you can either put into the chat function or let Michelle know that you'd like to ask a question.
Well, we have two questions here. One from Terry. He asked, I cover my raised bed in the winter. How often should I water it?
That's a really great question. Thank you, Terry, for asking. So yeah, so a lot of us also use for the fall winter garden season extensions, like a little mini low tunnel over our raised beds, or you can use cloches, or you might have a greenhouse available to grow in. But yeah, even though it's raining so much outside, the rain isn't getting into our raised beds. So, however, there is a lot of humidity and moisture in the air still, and you'll see that kind of happening on your, if you're using a low tunnel or greenhouse, you'll see the condensation forming on the plastic polyfilm or on the glass. And yeah, so the moisture will be retained in the garden for longer. But you still are going to have to take off the cover and water it. So generally what I find for my raised beds is a monthly water tends to kind of keep things taken care of, and it's going to hold in that moisture for a lot longer. But it's best to kind of experiment a little bit and see in your particular situation how often you need to water. And the best way to do that is just to do a little moisture check. So I'll just stick in my finger into the soil, and if it's dry up to my second knuckle, then they're going to need some good deep watering. If you stick in your finger and it comes out and there's a lot of soil sticking to it, it feels moist to the touch, then you're good. And I would wait, another week, maybe 2 weeks to check and see if it needs water. And do we have any other questions right now?
I'm full of questions, Carissa. I was curious, you said that radicchio is a common leafy green used for warm salads. And I noticed that a lot at restaurants. Do you happen to know why? Like, is there a certain structural component to this particular lettuce that works well for it? Well for warm salads versus just colder salads, or?
That's a great question.
I know you're not a cook, so if I'm putting you on the spot, sorry, I was just curious. because
No
I've just
problem.
noticed it.
Yeah, exactly. Like what I find if I'm going out to eat or if I'm cooking at home is the endives and the radicchios tend to stand up the best to heat, right? I don't know scientifically like the structural components of the leaves to give you an answer in that way, but you know, from a gardener's perspective, the leaves are definitely thicker.
Oh,
So that they don't wilt down when you're cooking with them or making a warm salad. And how they tend to do it and how I've done it myself is just grilling one side. So you take your endive or you take your radicchio, cut it in half or cut it into quarters if you have a larger head, and just put it on the grill or a warm cast iron pan, that kind of thing, and get the side that's touching the hot surface just charred, and it's going to warm the whole leaf, and it's going to aid in keeping the crispness in the leaf, which is, you know, really something that you want to maintain in the warm salad. But one of my favorite things that I had that kind of turned me on to doing it this way is I had a sea couterie at Edible Vancouver on Granville Island, which I'm so sad to see. It looks like it has closed down. Yeah, but what they did is a bunch of different smoked fishes, like a smoked tuna, some other different options, and then they grilled some endive, which has that nice bitter flavor, and put it on kind of a bed of warmed mayo and herbs, and you just kind of scooped up a little bit of fish, a little bit of sauce into kind of the endive cups, and just the flavor profile of how that bitterness was working with the creaminess of the sauce, and then the smokiness of both the charred part of the endive and the fish just worked so well. So I've like replicated this many times at home because I can't get enough of this meal. Also, again, a really nice one to serve to other people.
Yeah.
Okay, so my pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about direct seeding versus seedling. So when do you choose to plant what? So my first kind of go-to is West Coast Seeds Fall and Winter Guide. So it's going to kind of break down the planting windows for all of your fall and winter gardens. So that's my first step. And then how I've kind of thought about it too is so lettuce can be, and all of these greens can be either direct sown or transplanted. So you really have a choice. So it's more about timing. So what period of time are you in? Is there enough time for the plant to mature in the fall winter garden? So right now we have time to direct sow still lettuce, arugula, wild greens, and we're just kind of passing the windows for head lettuce, radicchio, Swiss chard, and we can still plant spinach and kale as well. So once we're kind of past those windows like the head lettuce and the radicchio, then we're going to use seedlings all of the time. So it's more kind of a seasonal timing that I'm looking at, whether I'm direct sowing or I'm transplanting. And then the other thing I'm just looking at is my overall garden. Like, do I have gaps right now that I can plant that I can direct sow seedlings in, or am I waiting for things to finish up? In that case, then what I'm going to do is either start seeds inside, so I have some seedlings to transplant, or I'm going to purchase seedlings from the garden center and fill in those gaps later on in September so that I can still get the fall harvest crops. So the next kind of consideration that we need to think of for the salad bowl is growing in containers. So lettuces work amazingly well, grown in raised beds and planters and pots. And the main reason being is, first of all, they stay a compact size, but their roots are fairly shallow. So when you're selecting a container to grow in, as long as your container is 6 inches deep, you can grow lettuce in it. So that's great news for somebody who might have like a railing planter that they want to utilize, or something, a pot with a little bit shallower depth. Most vegetables that we're growing is going to want a depth of at least 12 inches. So I tend to look for pots, planters, raised beds, containers, all that are going to have 12 inches so that they're versatile, so I can grow anything in them. But if I come across a planter that I really love that is, 6 inches, then that's going to be kind of my salad bowl container. So you're going to want to also make sure that your container has drainage holes. So often we look and we find like a really lovely pot, and then realize, actually no drainage holes. And none of our vegetables, if grown outside, are going to do well in that scenario. We need them to have drainage holes. So you can often drill in drainage holes if it's a material that will help with that. But usually I'm just looking for one that's going to be at least 6 inches, preferably 12 inches deep, and with drainage holes. And then we're going to fill the pot with potting soil. So we're not going to use just compost or just manure. We're going to choose potting soil, which usually consists of also peat moss or cocoa coir and vermiculite or perlite. So my 2 favorite brands that are readily available of potting soil are Sea Soil Container Complete. Sea Soil has 2 different products, just their straight compost and the Container Complete. And the Container Complete includes peat moss and vermiculite in it. Those components help with drainage and retaining moisture in the soil, and allowing air pockets to remain in the soil, all of which are really important for container growing. But I like it better than, a lot of the other more widely available options, because it's organic, it's produced on Vancouver Island, but also it has compost in it. So it has a nutrient source for our vegetables to grow. And the other one that I will use is called Pro Mix Veggie and Herbs. Again, that's going to have the peat moss, the vermiculite, a little bit of compost in it. But what I love about them as well is they've added in microbial activity, mycorrhizae, which means that it's living soil. Lots of bag soils, most bag soils are sterilized, which kills bad bugs and good bugs. So ProMix is reintroducing that into the bag soil. But again, my favorite thing to do is just make my own. And what I'm using to make my own, and yes, I'm seeing cocoa coir from Terry as a really good suggestion. And one of the reasons why I make my own is I'm using 4 parts of compost, 2 parts of cocoa coir, and 1 part of vermiculite or perlite, so that I know exactly what's going into my soil. It's very biologically active, and more of a sustainable choice as well. So when we're planting in raised beds or pots, we're going to use a strategy called square foot gardening. So traditionally in the backyard garden, people set the garden up in rows. And that's what you'll find for instructions on seed packages and educational websites, is for growing in rows. But the purpose of rows is for us to access our crops. So when we're growing in raised beds, as long as they're not wider than 4 feet, or pots, we can just reach in at all ends and have access to our crops. We don't need room to walk in between. So that means we can grow more in a small space. And what that looks like is something like this. So we divide the whole garden into square feet. So this garden has it marked out, but I just often will do it with my hands or my tools, just so I have a little bit of a grid. And each is a square foot, so 12 inches the square. And then we will look at the size of the vegetables. So large plants like broccoli or peppers will plant 1 per square foot. And then medium plants like leaf lettuce will plant 4 per square, or sorry, head lettuce will plant 4 per square foot. And then smaller plants like leaf lettuce or beets will plant 9 per square foot. And then extra small plants like carrots or radish will plant 16 per square foot. So that's what it looks like in the raised bed. What we kind of need to know for today for our salad bowl is that we're going to plant 9 leaf lettuce per square foot. So if we're planting 9, and then this is the video of just what that looks like in practice. So we've got 4 head lettuce there. And we've got 9 leaf lettuce. So they're just spread out over the whole grid of the square. And then we've got our extra small plants like our carrots. And I'm going to show you what that looks like by seed in the square foot garden here. So we just mark out our spacings like so with the pad of our finger. And then we're going to put a few carrot seeds per spacing over the grid. And then once the seeds come up, we're going to thin, so there's just 1 seedling per spacing, so that we have 16 carrots growing in the grid. And then here's our salad bowl. So now we're in a pot. Pot is 1 feet wide and 2 feet long and 1 foot depth. So this is what the leaf lettuce looks like for our salad bowl. So I'm planting 9 leaf lettuce in the center of the salad bowl. And then we've got some room on each end. So I want to plant some things to spice up the salad bowl. So I'm going to put in some cilantro. So I've got some herbs to toss in. Cilantro is a cool season herb. So cilantro doesn't like its roots disturbed. So have it in a peat pot, and it is I've left the peat pot on, and then I've got parsley there that I just planted, and then I want something fun, so I've added some edible flowers. So those are violas, which are very cold hardy and a great addition to the salad bowl to mix things up. And those are going to make things look nice and pretty. And that's what the salad bowl is going to look like. So I've surrounded it with some annual herbs and edible flowers. Now, once it's planted, we're going to water infrequently, but deeply. So first we need to have it established. So it's hard on the plants when we transplant them. So the first week, I'm going to water it daily so that the roots can recover and they'll start to come in. And then I'm going to slow off my watering pattern. So then I'm going to go every 2, maybe 3 days. But when I water, I'm going to do slow passes until it starts to trickle out of the bottom of the pot, or I'm starting to kind of see it pool on the surface. So I'm watering really deeply, and that way I'm creating really deep roots. So when we have periods of drought, which we all know what that looks like over the summer, our plants are going to be able to withstand those kind of conditions a little bit better. And then 2 weeks later, we're ready to harvest. So I'm going to just step outside. We're going to pretend that it's 2 weeks later because I've just planted them this way, and I'm going to show you what the cut and come again method looks like. So bear with me. And if anybody has any questions right now, would be a great time to ask while I'm just heading outdoors to show you.
Oh, Terry, that's a great idea, using string to make a grid. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way, instead of, having to put down something more permanent, is, yeah, kind of marking it out that way. So has anybody tried square foot gardening before? Is that something new to you guys, or is that something that you're familiar with?
I've heard of it, but trying to get my my sister to follow those rules is a little harder to come by. She likes to plant willy-nilly, so
That's right. It is very structured. So it's not for everybody, but also you can kind of take the principles and adapt them to your own purposes too. Essentially, just giving you, an idea of how closely you can plant things together, but they don't necessarily need to be in the grid in that way. It's just kind of marking out your own space and garden so that you're working kind of 12-inch chunks. So, okay, so I'm going to just flip my screen here. And here we've got the salad bowl live. And we've got our little baby lettuces.
Can you unshare your slide?
Oh, I brought the wrong one out here. Oh, okay. Okay. One moment.
Or we could just spotlight the phone. Would that work? Unspotlight the slides and then, oh, you might have to unshare. Let's see.
Hold on.
You could also minimize the shared screen.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. I guess it. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Unshared.
All right. We're good to go,
okay,
Carissa.
we're back on. Okay, I am back inside, so I'll scoot back out.
Well, you're getting your steps today.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Chris, are you still with us?
You're frozen,
Okay.
Carissa.
To be, can you hear me? We're frozen?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I think
There you
hello. Go. Yes.
Oh. Oh, that's beautiful. They're doing
Are
so
we
well.
back on?
There
So
you
we're going to wait normally two weeks for the. Can everybody see and hear?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to wait for the plants to be at least 3 to 4 inches tall before our first harvest. So we're not quite ready yet. But what you're going to do when you're harvesting is you're going to take the entire plant. So this is actually with the blends. These, actually have about 4 to 5 seedlings in each chunk. So if you're planting by seed, you're not going to thin them out. You're going to leave all of those seeds you planted. And then you're going to take the entire thing in one hand and you're going to cut it down to 1 inch. So just where my finger is where I will make the cut. And then what's going to happen is the whole plant is going to regrow from that cut kind of stem, and it will do so 3 or 4 times. So that is what we call cut and come again method. And that can be used for all of the leaf lettuces, that can be used for spinach, arugula, and those kind of leafy greens. So I see that we're getting at our time right now, and we're just kind of finishing up the slides. So I'd like to just kind of open things up for another 5 minutes so that people can ask any questions that they have about the project.
Well, I noticed looking at your planters outside, there was this black, it was almost like a black cover or hood on it. Is that like a grow light, or what is that? Is that just a cover?
Oh, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm actually a friend's backyard that I'm using today. So
Okay. I'm like, I was just wondering where she got those planters from.
She has like a small planter on her deck, which is from Costco, actually.
Oh, okay.
That is black, yeah, and it is self-watering. And then she's got some beds as well that are made out of cedar raised beds.
Okay.
And any other questions from anybody in the chat or asking live?
I think the only question that I would have, I'm not sure, maybe this would be better to go at the very end, but I was wondering what your favorite recipe to make with salad greens is.
That's such a good question. I'm glad you asked that, because I have some slides, but don't think I'll have the chance to get to them. But I'm going to tell you verbally what they are,
Okay.
and
Beautiful.
I'll provide Michelle with a little recipe afterwards that she can send out to you guys. But my favorite way to use up the greens that I'm growing is called salad in a jar. And what I do is I take, the larger mason jars that are 500 milliliters, and I particularly like the wide mouth mason jars for this. And I layer my salad ingredients. So on the very bottom layer is my dressing, so my wet ingredients. The layer above that is any other wet ingredients, like pomegranate arils or some fruits that I might like in there, or tomatoes, things that are very juicy. And then on top of that layer, then I'll have kind of thicker vegetables. So maybe some root crops like carrots or beets, or something like that in there. And then on top of that, I'm going to put things that are a little bit lighter that I don't really want to get wet at all. So stuff like cucumbers, I might put in there, onions, or some crispy kind of ingredients. And then on top of that, that's where I'm going to put my baby greens or my herbs or my very soft kind of lettuces and so on. And I'm going to really pack that in. So it's like, I can't really get any more greens in, kind of thing. And then I'll seal up the mason jar, put it in my fridge. And what I love about that is it's going to last a whole week. So often in the spring and the fall, when I'm so busy gardening, that's how I meal prep. So I will just meal prep 7 salads, and I might put something a little bit more substantial on the top with some protein or some fat, like some nuts or some cheese or some fish, so that it will sustain me for throughout the day. And I'll just stock up my fridge with 7 salad in a jar, and they change each time based on just what vegetables I have in my garden or what other ingredients I have in my kitchen. And it's just very fresh and healthy. Plus, what I find is, we talked about at the start, when you're buying those baby green blends, they often get a little slimy and not so gross. And even so too, when you're harvesting from your garden, if you put it in the fridge, you'll get a little bit wilty pretty quickly. But when you seal it in in the jar and take out the oxygen from it, it's going to keep it really crisp. So I'll even do that too if I'm not making a salad in a jar, don't have time for that. I'll put my baby greens in a jar, seal it, and it's going to last a lot longer.
Oh, that's amazing, actually. Such a good meal prep idea. I'll definitely have to use that.
That is actually really good. If
I
you
know.
want to put that in the email you sent to me, that would be good. Awesome, because I'm always looking for healthier alternatives, and I'm always busy. So yeah, it's either I eat like crap or I forget to eat. So this would be a good solution for me.
And I will say that particular solution is doctor approved, or my client who is a doctor approved, because I kind of showed her that trick when the lettuce was coming in, fast and hot. And, she's a very, very busy woman as a doctor, especially, a doctor during a pandemic. And she started doing the salad in a jar, and just like, that was like really, step of her reclaiming time and health for herself. So it can be like very simple way to, just make those little shifts. So
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Carissa.
my pleasure. Do I have any other burning questions coming through the chat or verbally?
I don't see anything in the chat. Any last minute questions, everyone?
Okay, well, I'm so excited to spend this hour with you guys today. I really appreciate you inviting me into your community to chat with you about growing all these good green things. And I wanted to just, provide people with an opportunity if they want to work with me one-on-one. I'm going to put on my website, so it will be available later this evening, a discount code for you so that you can get 50% off a consultation on site with you using the discount code DIGA. So I'd love to continue working with anybody that's interested. The consultation can be used towards a coaching session if you're wondering, oh, I didn't quite get out of the garden what I wanted, or I'd like to try a fall garden this year. Or it can be used for a design consultation if you're wanting to kind of scale up your space or create a space for you to garden. I'd love to be